You're already complex sometimes when it's like this. So yesterday we talked about factoring by grouping when there were opposites, right? The groups were opposite, x minus 2 and 2 minus x. And we figured out that to find an opposite, the opposite, you just multiply something by negative 1 and it's the opposite. If I have negative 5 and I want to know the opposite, all I have to do is multiply it by negative 1 and then I would see that the opposite is 5, right? If I had x plus 2 and I wanted to know the opposite, I'd multiply it times negative 1 and I would get negative x minus 2, right? If I had x minus 10 and I wanted to get the opposite, if I multiplied it by negative 1, I would get 10 minus x, right? So those are opposites. Now, what is a rational expression? Who knows? Merritt.
Is it something that doesn't have like a square root and that you can...
That's radical expressions. Remember, those are radicals. They're often confused. They're often confused. Rational.
They sound the same. They should do different things.
I agree. They sound the same. I agree. They should be different, but they're not. Well, they are different, but they're not. They don't sound different very much. Rational. What is the root word of rational?
Ratio.
Ratio. What's a ratio? How would you write it? How would you write a ratio of 4 to 1? How would I write that?
Oh yeah.
As a fraction, right? Every ratio is a fraction. Every fraction is a ratio. You've been dealing with ratios since you started learning fractions. They just didn't tell you. But 1/2 is a ratio. It's 1 to 2. I have 1 parts of water to 2 parts of oatmeal. No. 1 part of oatmeal to 2 parts of water. Or rice, the rice recipe is 1 part of rice to 2 parts of water, right? That's a ratio. 1/2 is a ratio. Every fraction is a ratio. So when I say simplifying rational expressions, I'm talking about simplifying fractions, okay? But they're not going to be like 1/2 or 2/4. They're going to be expressions that have x's in them. All right, so if I had, I'm going to do one without dealing with the opposites first. So if I had, we did this yesterday, I believe we did a couple. So let's say we did 4x squared minus 32x all over x minus 8. How would I do that? And I asked you to simplify it. Whenever you get these problems, you ask yourself, John, you ask yourself, how can I factor the numerator? And can I factor the numerator? So that's what you ask. You say, can I factor numerator? Can I factor numerator? Right? And that's your first question. Your second question is, can I factor the denominator? Right? Can I factor the numerator? Mia, can I? This one. Can I factor this numerator? Yes. How would I do it?
You would 4x.
4x, good. Parentheses.
X minus 8.
Okay. Can I factor the denominator? No. So I just have to write it. Okay. Can I go any further?
Yeah.
Lila, can I go any further? What would I do?
You would cross out the x minus 8 from both sides because...
Right. Now remember, you can only do that when something is being multiplied times something, right? If it said 4x plus x minus 8, I cannot do it. But it's because there's 2 factors, a factor here times a factor here, and then down here I just have one of those factors. I can cross one of those factors out. So I can cross out the x minus 8, and I can cross out the x minus 8, right? So that gives me 4x. So my answer is 4x. That is my answer. Now sometimes though, you don't get this x minus 8 over x minus 8. You get something almost like it. Let's say, well, I'm going to do a new problem. I'll just say this. Here's our new problem. That's our problem number 1. Here's problem number 2. I did press that. Okay. Let's say I had x plus 2 over, excuse me, not x plus 2, x minus 2 over 2 minus x. Sorry. X minus 2 over 2 minus x. Those are not the same. I can't just cross them out. Sina, do you have an idea? Raise your hand.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. What would you do though? Think about it. Sina. So yeah, what could you do? What have you learned yesterday and, well, yesterday really, that you could, what principle have you learned yesterday and today that could help you with this, to simplify this?
Well, I don't really know because I don't know because, I don't know.
What do you notice, how do they relate to each other?
They both have X's and 2.
Okay, and what else?
They're flipped.
They're flipped, okay. So, Lila, help us some more.
Factor out the -1.
Right, remember this?
Oh yeah.
Right? Factoring out their opposites,
So then it would be.
So help me do that. Which one do you want to do it on? The
top.
Top or top? Okay. So if I do this though, this is really important. You don't just factor out the -1 in your head. You actually have to write the -1. It's really important. If you don't, you're going to be wrong. Guaranteed. You got to do it. You got to write it out. You got to write -1 parenthesis. Okay.
And then it would be 2 minus x.
So it's going to be now 2 minus x, right? It's going to be the positive x could be negative x, boom, and the -2 is going to be positive 2. Okay? All over, what's the denominator? 2 minus x. Does the -1 affect the denominator?
Nope.
No. It only affects the numerator, right? Can you guys see? Sorry. So now what can you do? Finish it, Lila.
They cross out and then it would just be -1.
Yeah, so the answer is -1. So look at that. That incredibly complex, well, it's not that complex, but that looks fairly complex to most people when they first see it. All it is -1. That's all it is. Yeah.
So all of them that are opposites all equal -1?
No, no, but this one does. They, like if it depends. Like if I could factor out more than a -1, like a -4. If I factor out a -4, like up here I factored out a 4x. So my answer was 4x. It's whatever you can factor out that becomes your answer. However, it gets more complicated if you have to also factor stuff out in the denominator. You know what I mean? Then it's not going to be as straightforward. You have to kind of go one step at a time. So let's do one more problem like this. Can I erase that? Is that okay? One more problem before Nate rings the bell. Don't ring the bell quite yet, Nate. Okay, they'll never know, okay? They'll never know. All right, so let's say we had 7 minus x over 4x squared minus 28x. So write that down in your notes. Write that down. So I asked myself my 2 questions. Can I factor the numerator?
No.
Can you wait? Can you wait? Just like I would like you to write this down, because this is the homework. This is the last thing. It'll be done in 1 minute. So can I factor out the numerator? No. Can I factor anything in the denominator? Yes. Hannah, what would I do? What can I factor out of both of these?
4.
4 and x.
Yeah, x.
4x. And then what would I get?
7. Oh.
4x times what is 4x squared? What? I didn't hear you.
7x.
4x.
Oh, x.
4x times what equals 4x squared? X, right? And then I've got a minus sign.
Minus
And then
7.
4x times what is 28? X? 7. Okay, now what do I do?
Did you factor out 7 minus x and x minus 7?
But those are not the same. Those are opposites.
Right.
I can't do that. So what would I do, Vincent?
You do the minus 1 thing.
Factor out a negative 1. Do I do it? You want to do it upstairs or downstairs? Doesn't matter. What? Upstairs. Okay, that's fine. So we'll do it. You write your negative 1, parenthesis. Now the 7 minus x is going to be x minus 7, all over 4x times x minus 7. Right? So now you have blobs that are the same. We're going to cross out the x minus 7, cross out the x minus 7. My final answer is negative 1 over 4x. Negative 1 over 4x. Right? So it's pretty straightforward. It's a hugely helpful process or procedure to do. That is